Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to Database Practical Sessions. In the last session, we have seen how we can create forms and reports in MS Access. Today, we will learn how we can create relationship in MS Access. So what is a relationship? Relationship is an association between different tables. We have seen in the definition of database that we store the data that is related to each other. So, in relationship, we actually combine the data or combine the fields of different tables. In a relational data model, we have three different types of relationships. First, we have one-to-one relationship. One-to-one relationship, a single record of one table is associated with a single record from another table. For example, a relation between a person and his passport is one-to-one. A single person can have a single passport and a single passport can belong to a single person. So this is an example of one-to-one relationship. Next we have one-to-many relation. So we can take example of a mother and children. So a single mother can have multiple children, but a single child can have one mother. So this is an example of one-to-many relation. Next we have many-to-many relation. So in many-to-many relationship, more than one records from one table can belong to more than one records of another table. We can take example of a relation between employees in projects. So a single employee can be working on more than one projects, and a single project can be assigned to more than one employees. So from both sides, it is many-to-many relationship. Today we will see how we can apply these three relationships in MS Access. So let's start. First we will create the blank database. And we will add some tables. So first a table we will create as a student table. So in student table we have ID. We will select number as the data type. Then we have student name, first name and last name. Next, I am creating another table as we will go to the design view and I will give the name as student contact info. So in student contact info we have student ID, we have phone number, we have city, address and email. This table contains all the contact information of a student. We can select the data type of email as hyperlink, and for phone number we can select large number. Okay, next I am creating another table as department. So we have department ID and department name as short text. Here I am changing the department ID as number. So we will save it. Next I am creating another table and we will go to the design view and I will name this table as course. So here we have course ID, which is a number, and name of the course, which is okay. So here we have to write course name, which is a short text. Okay, so we have created 4 different tables and we will create relationship between them. First, I want to add another field in the student table, which is department ID, because the student will belong to some department. So we have to add this department ID field here. And the data type of this department ID should be the same of the data type of this department ID, because this is the original department ID as a primary key here, and we will add the department IDs in the student table which are present in the departments table. So now let's add some data. First we will add in the department ID. This is CS department, then this is maths department, then with 3 ID we have management department, and with 4 we have EE department, electrical engineer. So I have defined 4 different departments with department ID. We will save the table, and now we will add course. So here I am adding course. We have database, then we have computer communication and network as a CCNet, then with 13 ID here we have linear algebra maybe. Okay, we will save it. Next we have a student, so we will add the student ID here, Ali Khan. So here in department ID, make sure to add those department IDs that you have already defined in the department table, because otherwise it will cause the problem. So here we have 1 2 3 4, we have 1 2 3 4, only 4 department IDs available, so we can add any department ID from these 4 values. We can also use lookup wizard, so it will show us the department ID from the department table, and we can select those from the drop down menu. 113 we have Sarah Usman, the department ID 1. Then we have another student with ID 234, and his name is David Andrew, with department ID 3 again. We have another student with name Sabah Javed, with department ID 4. So here we have add records of 4 different students, and we will save the table. Now we will go to student contact information. Okay, here now you see that because there will be relation between the student and student contact info, here student contact info, we can only add those IDs which are present in the student ID of the student table. So we have these 4 different IDs. Okay, here now you can see that in student, the student ID has data type as number, but in student contact info we have let it like auto number, so we have to change it to number. It should be the same data type which we have defined in the student table, because the record will be the same in both tables. So now we will add data in student ID. Here we can add number and city. I'm getting some just random address and email. So we can add something ali.78@gmail.com. Next student we have 113, I think. Yes, I will add some random contact number, and then city, some random address XYZ, and then here you can add an email like sarah.ali@yahoo.com. I'm just adding the records randomly. Okay, and we will save this table. So I think we have entered records in all our 4 tables. We have kept in mind that this student ID in the student contact info can have same records as the student ID in the student table. because we will only store the contact information of those students which are present in our student table. Similarly, this department ID should be from one of these department IDs in the department table, because student will study in one of those departments that are present in the database of that school or university. We can select from these 4 departments. Actually, this is important for creating the relationship. Like if you can add 5 here, it will accept it, but when we'll create the relationship, it will cause the problem. Okay, so now we will close all these tables. It is important before creating the relationships and courses. Now we will go to database tools, and here we will select relationships. So it is showing the option that which tables you want to add. So we will add all these tables and close it. So here we have added all these tables. First, we will create one-to-one relationship between student table and student contact information. So here a single student can has a single contact information, and similarly a single contact information can belong to a single student. So it is a one-to-one relationship, and we will create the relationship between the primary keys of both tables. So how we will create? We will select the ID of student and we will drag it to the student ID. Now it is giving you option. So here, yes, this ID we have selected from student table and this ID we have selected from student contact info table. We will enforce referential integrity and we will select these options. These options I have explained in the previous session, that cascade update delete means that if we delete some student from the student table, it will automatically delete this contact information from the student contact info table. Or if we update in the ID of the student here in the student table, it will update that ID in the student contact info table as well. And now we will select create. Now you can see that it has shown that this is one-to-one relation. In this way you can create one-to-one relationship between 2 different tables. Okay, now we will create one-to-many relation. So here a relationship between student and department is one-to-many, because a department can have multiple students but a single student can belong to only one department. For example, you can either belong to EE in department or computer science department, but in computer science department there will be many students. So this is example of one-to-many relationship. For creating one-to-many relationship, we actually create a relation between the primary key and the foreign key. So for now we know what the primary key is. Foreign key means that the key that is a primary key of another table. Like here, this department ID is a foreign key. How it is a foreign key? Because it is a primary key of another table. So if a primary key of a table appears in another table, that key becomes a foreign key in that table. So one-to-many relationship, we actually create one-to-many relationship between a primary key and the foreign key. So how we will create? We will select the primary key of our first table and we will drag it to the foreign key of second table. Now here we have seen that we have selected the correct fields. We will enforce referential integrity and we will select these options and we will create this relation. Now you can see that this is one-to-many relationship. We have seen that how we can create one-to-one relationship and one-to-many relationship. Next we have many-to-many relation. So if you consider a relationship between student and course, it is many-to-many relationship. How? Because a single student can take multiple courses. Like a single student can take linear algebra, as well as database system. Similarly, a single subject can be taken by multiple students. It is possible that the database system is taken by 30 students. So from both sides, it is many-to-many relationship. In Access, we don't have option to create many-to-many relationship. So how we create many-to-many relationship in Access? We create many-to-many relationship in Access with the help of linking table or intermediate table, joining table. So with this linking table, we actually create two one-to-many relationships, and that becomes many-to-many relationship. I will explain how. So now we will close this. We will save these relationships. Now we will create a linking table. We'll go to design view. Because we are creating this linking table for student and course, so I will write the name of the table as student course. So here we will add the primary keys of both tables. So this is the ID of this table. I will let it like this. Now I will add student ID, which is the number, because in the original table we have data type as number, and then course ID, which is also a number. We can add other fields as well, for example semester, or you can add year, etc., some other information, other fields as well. Okay, I'm adding only these fields. Save it. Now we will add some data here. So this ID will be auto number. Here we have to select student ID, which is the present in the student table. So I'm selecting this 234. Next, course ID, we have to select from course ID from the course table. So I'm selecting 1, 2, and semester, you can give any number in the semester. So next record we can add for 112 and with course ID 11 and semester 3. So I have added 2 records. This is the ID of this table, the primary key of this table. Because it is a linking table, it must contain the primary key of those tables between which it will create the relation. So we have student ID from the student table as a foreign key here, and course ID from the course table as a foreign key here. We will save it. Now we will close these tables. We will go to relationships. Now here right click and select this option of show table, because we also want to add this student course table, and close this. So this is the linking table between course and student table. Here we will create two one-to-many relationships. Now we will create the relation between the primary key of student table and drag it to the foreign key, which is student ID. And here we will select these options and create. So we have created one one-to-many relationship. Now it's time to create relationship between course and this linking table. So we will select the primary key of this table and we will go to this foreign key course ID at this table. We will select all these options and we will create it. Now you can see that we have two one-to-many relationships, which means that the relationship between course and student is many-to-many relation. This is how we create many-to-many relationship in MS Access. We will close it and we will save it. Now I want to show you something. Here I want to delete this record with department ID 3. Now we will see what happened. So it is asking, are you sure you want to delete this record? Yes. So I have deleted this department with the department ID 3. Now we will see what happened in this student table. So here you can see that the record that is related to the department ID 3 has been deleted as well. Because it doesn't make any sense that you don't have any department with the 3 ID. So the students shouldn't belong to that department. So it has deleted those records as well. Now similarly, if we want to add another record of a student, and here if we want to add some department ID like 7 which is not present, it will not accept it. Okay, here I have written the duplicate value in the primary key, so it is not accepting it. I will change this value, and now we will see. You cannot add or change a record because a related record is required in the table department. So we cannot add any department ID which is actually not present in the department table. So this is how relationships works. Now if I update some record in the department table, like I change the department ID of EE as 5 and save it. Now what will happen in student table, the department ID which was 4 initially has been updated to 5 as well. So you can see that by creating relationships we can actually keep our data consistent in all the tables, and we can avoid redundancy. Like here in this we have separated the student contact information. We don't need to repeat all these fields in the student table. We just have to add the student ID here, and we will know that what is the email address of Sarah student. They both are present in different tables, but because of the relationship between them, we can extract any contact information of any student from this table. So in this session, we have learned how we can create one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many relationships in MS Access.